Hello again, and welcome to another Modern Commerce Talk. I'm your host, Jack Stratton from Insider Trends, and I'm joined again by Tobias Bergström, Commerce Advisor at Avensia. Thanks for making the time again, Tobias, for joining us. Today, we are going to talk about something that we talk about a lot, actually. It comes up often with you, KPIs. And just on a personal note, it's interesting. I remember one of the first times we talked, and I can't remember what the context was, but we were talking, and a lot, and this was kind of one of the first kind of points of Insider Trends and Avensia collaborating. And my experience is, and a lot of my knowledge is based a lot on what Insider Trends does, and a lot of kind of like a lot of trend spotting and safaris and presentations where we're looking a hell of a lot just at what retailers do, and to an extent, just from what knowledge we can gather about how successful they've been. But what I noticed is that when I first started talking retail, B2B, anything like that with you, you immediately went to KPIs. You were talking about it so much earlier. And for me, in a lot of what I'd done, KPIs were always kind of, I was aware of them, and I knew that the clients that I worked with, it was important to, but I was always like, oh, I don't worry about KPIs. I'm just going to show them some cool stuff, and it will inspire them. But what I realized was actually how sometimes I was being a bit lazy, because it was almost like you needed, in many of these scenarios, basically, you needed to be thinking not just KPIs early on, but KPI first. And actually, you could almost position everything around them. And that made the whole thing a lot simpler. It cut out all this confusion of what should I do first as a retailer? I'm looking at these 80 trends and I don't know which one to pick. And when you just simply said, look at the KPIs, it was a real moment for me, actually. It's helped me a lot since. So on that note, just kind of on a really basic level, I want to just kick off with this question, which is what KPIs do you think e-tailers should measure and master? What are the kind of basic KPIs they should be focusing on?
Can I just, before we go into that, I totally agree. I think a lot of people zone out when they hear that KPI word, right? But if you break it down or spell it out, it's key performance indicators. It's actually what makes us successful. What are indicators of success? And then I think you might win over one or two. But I think, I'm a simple guy, and I think it's important to keep it simple, stupid, right? Yeah. Often when you talk about e-commerce or any kind of commerce for that matter, often you're quite interested in getting sales, right? Increasing sales.
Absolutely.
Or increasing your margin or decreasing your costs. So let's start there before we dive into any kind of new trend or decide to go with a project. Because if it's not driving your sales or improving your margins, why should we do it? So I think for any kind of commerce player out there, you should be looking at 3 KPIs that drive your sales. And it's simple, stupid, and everyone who's ever been in Google Analytics know it. It is traffic. Make sure that you get the traffic that you can convert, i.e. get the conversion rate there. So when you have the traffic and you have the conversion, you also need to make sure that they buy, that the average order value is high, right? With those 3 simple, stupid KPIs that you can measure in real time if you're an e-commerce actor, or you can do it more on a daily basis if you're in physical retail, is really what should be defined in our lives, right? Because those 3 together make up the sales. I think what's interesting is that the 3 KPIs often have very different tactics connected to them. So if you're talking e-commerce and traffic, it's all about getting the sessions, getting the visits that will help you convert, and that can be search engine optimization, or it can be page load times. It can be anything Google related. It can be your brand, having a strong brand, stuff like that. Whilst for conversion rate, it's all about really making sure that the consumer feels comfortable, that you lower all the thresholds that are not necessary, right? And then you got average order value, which is all about cross-sell and upsell. and making sure that you position the premium product and or that you're able to explain the real value of it. So again, there are hundreds of different tactics that work these 3 KPIs, but those are the ones for me.
I wonder, during the pandemic, I think in some ways is like an interesting, one day it could be looked on as an interesting case study in itself in terms of how people behaved, how customers changed their behaviors, how retailers changed as a response. How much though? So I've read about all kinds of things that have changed in this period with e-commerce, with the way that brands have used e-commerce, some doing things for the first time, people trying all kinds of new and cutting edge stuff. But how much actually has it just been a case of the biggest success stories have been brands who've just slightly dialed up in each of those 3 areas? Because I've got a gut feeling, looking at some of the brands that have done best, it's the same e-commerce brands from before the pandemic who clearly knew how to do this stuff already, and they've just been able to just go, right, we've just got to keep on focusing on, optimization, increasing those average order values and all that stuff you were just talking about. What's your view on that?
I think those who have been working with e-commerce for a long time have the resources, the skills in-house. I mean, it's so much easier for them to succeed, because it's like you say, if you're working with 3 KPIs that together make up the sales, right? You got a multiplication effect. So if you only tweak your conversion rate, if you only tweak your traffic with a few percentages, and you up the average order value with £1 or so, you get a multiplication effect, which is huge, right? And I think a lot of our of the companies out there don't see this very, very simple connection, or they might see it, but they don't work it, right? I mean, and we should also realize that these 3 basic KPIs, they also go together. So if you get a lot of new traffic, your conversion rate will probably fall. That's why it's an indicator. It's not the measurement of success, right? But it sometimes blows my mind that multi-million-dollar pound businesses don't even capture this data or use it as the starting point for all the cool stuff you then do.
And is this at the other end of the kind of the marketplace? Is this an opportunity then for, say, I'm a retailer with lots of stores, but I've done very little e-commerce and I'm still struggling to kind of penetrate the market, or I'm a brand new brand? Does that still represent a big opportunity by saying to them, well, actually, it's exactly the same. If you just absolutely obsess with those 3 areas, rather than maybe getting distracted by these other things, you have an opportunity to catch up more quickly?
Yeah, and I think it's all about what activities, what projects you run to drive what KPI. So let's say, for instance, a new player in an industry or a producer that wants to go direct to consumer. Of course, you might, if you're an established brand, you might have the traffic for free, right? Because your consumers went to your website to do the research anyhow. So you get a lot of traffic for free, which is great. And perhaps we don't have to invest that much right now in the traffic part. But we've never done e-commerce before, so will probably make a lot of rookie mistakes when it comes to facilitating this customer journey, right? So let's focus on decreasing the thresholds for conversion. And perhaps we haven't really figured out the product relations. So what accessory go with what main product? So that's where we focus. So I think, the equation is the same. The game is the same. It's just different starting points for different types of companies out there. But you need to do the analysis and draw conclusions from that, and then be really diligent in how you prioritize going forward. Because I think that's the other thing. If you're lacking KPIs, if you're lacking measurements of the KPIs and ambitions for the KPIs, you can do whatever, right? You'll probably be caught in in focusing on what someone really wants to do, not necessarily that it builds sales.
Yeah, and this has really, it's helped my thinking a lot actually in recent times about omni-channel as well, because I've realized that I've reminded myself that it's as you regularly say, modern commerce, it's the same. These KPIs are exactly the same wherever you're selling, wherever the customer chooses to interact. And if you can create some fluidity between those channels, as long as the KPIs are there as kind of a cross-channel KPI, then if you can create that situation, that's really powerful, because then if you say, look, if a customer does something in the store and you're not necessarily boosting the average order value or converting them in the store, but what you do in the store helps that to happen online, that's really powerful. And again, it seems like a complicated thing, but those same simple KPIs are driving it. I love that. And I feel like for modern brands, that really is the key. If you can be fluid, but at the same time stick to these foundational KPIs, you'll go a long way.
And let's face it, I mean, store owners have for centuries, I would say, been working with these 3 KPIs, no matter if they call them KPIs or if they singled them out. But of course, you need to have you need to attract people going to the store, right? And when they're in the store, you want to facilitate their actually transacting and buying stuff. And when they buy stuff, you want to maximize how much they buy for. That's it. The store owner has done that since the dawn of time. And those are the 3: traffic, conversion rate, and average order value. But I think
absolutely,
like you say, in this omni-channel world we're living in, where you have a multitude of channels for one single customer journey, I mean, what's really on everybody's mind is trying to capture that omni-channel KPIs, that omni-channel conversion rate, that had to actually compare apples with pears, right? I mean, to compare that store visit with that online visit, and have an attribution model that works throughout. Because I think we're old enough to start looking at the customer journey rather than the channel.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've started to touch on a few things there we should pursue in a talk in the future. Me and you, Tobias, could talk about these for days. So I think we're going to have to be disciplined to keep it within the 10-minute structure. It's been a pleasure as always. Thank you for joining us for this particular talk. And we will see you again soon. Hopefully there'll be many more of these coming along our Modern Commerce talks. So thanks a lot and take care.
Thank you, Jack. Bye.